Welcome to New Possibilities. I speak truth to power without fear. So, as you all know, Donald Trump has been found guilty on all 34 counts. As you know, he was indicted for falsifying business records in connection with that whole hush money scandal involving Stormy Daniels. And so now we have a former president, who has been convicted of a felony, and now he's a felon, and he is still running for office, and he is likely to secure the nomination from the Republican Party for president. So I just want to take some time to share my thoughts about this. You know, a lot of people, the first thing that comes to their mind about this whole conviction is whether or not Donald Trump is still eligible to run for office. And that was the first thing that I thought of. So I immediately looked into this. And all you have to do is go to the Constitution, and it outlines the basic bare necessities in order to be eligible to run for president of the United States. First of all, it says no person except a natural born citizen or a citizen of the United States at the time of the adoption of this Constitution shall be eligible to the office of president. Neither shall any person be eligible to that office who shall not have attained the age of 35 years and been 14 years a resident within the United States. So those are the basic requirements in order for someone to be eligible to run for president. It doesn't say anything about being a convicted felon. So technically, Donald Trump can still run for president. You know, this conviction is not going to stop him from running for president. I'm really interested in knowing whether or not he will actually be sentenced to any jail time. I doubt that he will have actual jail time because it creates all kinds of issues. As you know, former presidents are protected by the security. You know, they have, the White House security that guards them for most of their life, from what I understand. And so it would create a security disaster for us, a former president to be incarcerated with inmates. And I heard speculations about different ways that he could still serve time and all that kind of stuff without him being in an actual jail. So we don't know what kind of sentence he's going to get. I can't recall when the sentencing will take place, but we'll find out soon. So that raises an interesting question, like if he is elected president after being convicted and sentenced to some jail time, like how does that work out? But that's a whole nother issue. One thing that I wanted to talk about is how this whole situation involving Trump has exposed the hypocrisy of the Republican Party. You know, this man faces all kinds of charges. You know, he's been found guilty of falsifying business records, and now, you know, he faces sentencing for that. You know, he's a convicted felon. He's been, he faces civil liability. There are other criminal cases against him. And, you know, a lot of times, you know, these Republicans present themselves as, you know, being about family values. They present themselves as being for law and order. They present themselves as if they are about democracy. And Donald Trump epitomizes everything that's against what these Republicans claim to stand for. You can't claim to be a party of family values when the candidate that you all support is anything but family values. You know, this man had an affair with a adult film star, for goodness sake. So this man has been on video, and this was exposed, you know, like when he was running for office, you know, making lewd comments about women and grabbing them and touching them and all this and that kind of stuff, you know, sexually violating women. But despite that, you know, these people that are supposed to be about family values and this and that are still rallying behind this man who doesn't adhere to that particular family value standard that the Republican Party for a long time has claimed that they have been about. The other thing is, the Republicans claim that they're about law and order and all this kind of stuff. And this man is anything but law and order when you look at his life and, these laws that he's accused of violating. When you look at the fact that this man incited a insurrection in this country. When you look at the fact that this man incited an insurrection again, where people literally stormed the Capitol at his incitement. Like, he made provocative statements encouraging and egging on that kind of behavior. And so people basically followed his lead and tried to storm the Capitol. They profess to be about law and order, but that's anything but law and order. That's the opposite of law and order. That's chaos. That's rebellion. That's, riots. That's what he has, condoned while claiming to be about law and order. It seems like these people are only about law and order when it's directed at Black people and other people of color, when it's directed at those who are protesting against injustice. But when it comes to Donald Trump perpetrating an injustice, trying to overturn a democratic election, they're all right with it. They don't care anything about law and order. They don't care about law and order when it's, these right-wing fanatics who are attacking the police that you all claim to care so much about. You claim to be about Blue Lives Matter, while these rioters that were inspired by Donald Trump attack law enforcement. So again, this, Donald Trump is exposed to hypocrisy of these Republicans. And then this whole thing about democracy, a lot of times these Republicans support acts of aggression abroad in the name of democracy. They support invasions of countries in the name of promoting democracy and all that kind of stuff. They support, that fascist regime in Israel in the name of supporting the only so-called democracy in the Middle East, while at the same time they are supporting a man who tried to undermine democracy. Not only with what happened in this particular case, where he tried to cover up information, falsify information while running for office. This man actually tried to overturn a democratic election. They had fake electors. They tried to put pressure on elected officials to find votes where there were no votes. That's anything but democratic. And these Republicans, in their blind support of Donald Trump, are violating the very principles that they claim to be about. And I don't understand how any true conservative can support a man like Donald Trump. But this is the new Republican Party. The other thing is this, like, some of this is exposed to hypocrisy of the left as well. Like, you have, people saying that he should be automatically disqualified for running for office. And I understand why they say that. But I think that whether or not he should be elected should be left up to the people, through the democratic process. And I hope and pray that the American people had a sense enough not to vote for a buffoon like Donald Trump. But it should be left up to the people instead of having somebody automatically disqualified based on a conviction. You can't claim to be about democracy when you think somebody should automatically be disqualified from running for office, thereby preventing the people from making their own choice as to who should be president. You can't, in one sense, you can't claim to really be about criminal justice reform and all this kind of stuff, like, ban the box and all that kind of stuff, when you want to immediately disqualify somebody, like, as a matter of law from running for office. It's one thing to say, well, that's something that people should take into consideration, and certainly it is when electing somebody. But in terms of disqualifying them, it goes against the principles, of many liberals when they talk about banning the box and all that kind of stuff. The other thing is this, just as I said with Marilyn Mosby, there's no evidence that this man is being prosecuted simply because of his political positions. This man is not some political prisoner, despite what he's putting out here, with his, through his surrogates and puppets and all that kind of stuff. He's not a political prisoner. There's no evidence that these prosecutions against him are based solely on politics. There was a ton of evidence presented to a jury in this case, and the jury looked at that evidence and they found this man guilty on all 34 counts. And it's just a shame that you had these people pushing this argument that this man is some kind of victim, this man is some kind of target and all that kind of stuff, when he's not. If he hadn't engaged in the activity that he engaged in, he wouldn't be subject to all these different lawsuits. This is a pattern of behavior with this man. That's what it is. And then the last point that I'll make is this. As I said, it should be up to the people to decide who they're going to vote for president. I don't think he should be automatically disqualified from running. But with that being said, nobody in their right mind should vote for a man like this. A man that tried to basically overthrow a democratic election by inspiring that insurrection that took place. And I've done a whole separate video where I talk about 10 reasons why Black people shouldn't vote for him. And I encourage people to watch that video. If I get a chance, I'll post a link in the cards. But this man has a long history of racism, racism against African Americans. And I could go on and on. But one of the prime examples of that is when he took out a full-page ad calling for the death penalty of those young brothers who were falsely charged and convicted in that Central Park case. And I would go into more detail, but I don't want to deal with censorship. This man had no mercy for those young men who were falsely charged and falsely convicted and so, forced to make false confessions and all that kind of stuff. He had no mercy for them. But then again, now that he's in a situation where he's been convicted based on actual evidence, this man wants people to have sympathy for him. This man wants people to rally around him and view him as some kind of political prisoner. And he's actually trying to raise money off of this foolishness. And the fact that these Republicans are supporting a man that is contrary to their all their professed values and all that kind of stuff just proves how bankrupt politically and morally the Republican Party is at this time. How in the world can anybody in their right mind support this man? Yeah, so those are just some quick thoughts about this. I may do a follow-up video, but I'm really interested in hearing from y'all. What do y'all think about this conviction? And one of the oddest things that I've seen is these Black people that are rallying behind them. You have to literally be out of your mind to be supporting Donald Trump as a Black person in this country. And the last thing I'll say is this, this whole thing involving Donald Trump and the way he's being treated just exposes the racism in this country as well. Because we know how thoroughly scrutinized President Obama was when he was running for office. They were digging all through the trash trying to find anything to discredit Obama. They tried to, even demonize him based on some actually true statements that his pastor made and connections to other people and all this and that. They tried to demonize him and all that kind of stuff. But here you have a man that is now a convicted felon, still running for office, still a top contender for president of the United States. There's no way in hell a Black man who is a convicted felon would be a top running candidate in this country. Given the fact that how deeply they scrutinize and criticize Obama for any little thing. There's no way in hell Obama would have been elected or even be able to run if he had the same background as Trump in terms of these convictions. And I could go on and on, but those are a few quick thoughts about this. Tell me what y'all think. Peace.